Hi, and welcome back to another episode of The Architecture of Health. I'm Deb Voisin, and my guest this week is Andreas David Christou from Cypress. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Deb. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me on your podcast.
Yeah, I found you because I saw that you are posting at a quantum level about what health possibilities there are. Then I dug a little deeper and found that you not only have your master's in movement science, but also a bachelor's in nutrition. And you're a lifestyle optimization coach. We have so much in common, and you've gone very far in this journey. I saw you posting recently about two types of blue. One was methylene blue, and I've used and been attracted to that, but haven't fully understood why it helped so much. But also, I see you posting a lot about the harms of blue light. So I thought today you could help my audience understand how to create a health foundation and where do these things fit in. So how about we start with let's just start with methylene blue. And I've got a little container of it here. I was so lucky that I used it when I was getting over toxic mold illness with fungal pneumonia. And I mean, it was a scary time. A year ago, I was out of my apartment for 6 weeks because it was so bad. And I was shocked that suddenly this kind of energy I had, and yet I was kind of nervous, like, how do I know that I'm using it properly? Oh, what? Yeah. So let's start there. How did you get attracted to methylene blue? And then where do you see its place in this large quantum field of health?
Perfect. Yeah. So before we dive in, I think it's very important to give a medical disclaimer and just a disclaimer in general that this is not medical or personal advice because methylene blue can actually be lethal if you're taking it in combination with certain medications. So please do your own research. I'm not a doctor. So what we are providing to you today is just educational information. So do it with what you please, the information.
I need to add that to all of my episodes. This is the first time we've talked, because part of the reason I started this is when in some of these other journeys of healing I've gone through, I call this the architecture of health because so much of the healing had to do with the environment. So much had to do with the sunlight, the ground, the stress, and later then it became the toxic mold. And I always say you can't find health in a pill or a bottle or a surgery, right? You can't find it there. But yeah, this was a weird case. And Dr. Ray Pete, his whole community was crazy about methylene blue. And I was always like, nah, I don't really do that. But I had such a profound shift in my own experience. I wanted, so this is just, we are sharing our experience, top level information. I am not a doctor. I don't even play one in the movies. Okay, let's go.
So yeah, basically how this actually works, it works on a fundamental and foundational level. I think before we actually even dive into methylene blue, it would be more important to understand the energy production in the body, right? Because that is on the level in which methylene blue is actually working on. So the most important thing when it comes to health is actually how the body harvests energy, processes energy, and is able to produce energy. And if it cannot do those things, that is the definition of death. So the definition of death is the absence of energy. So when the cells cannot produce energy anymore, your body begins to die slowly. That is basically what we call aging, right? Because oxidative stress and damage to our DNA is causing mitochondrial damage. And the mitochondria are these organelles within the cells which actually produce the energy for our cells. So basically you need energy to carry out all of your biological functions. If you do not have energy, you cannot detoxify efficiently, you cannot regenerate, you cannot heal, you cannot perform, you cannot produce hormones, you cannot basically have good cognitive performance. So if we're thinking about in general taking care of our health and trying to optimize our health in general, we need to go to the foundational level, and that is on the mitochondrial level. And everything within the mitochondria is working on a quantum level. It's not working on a biochemical level. Of course, there is a lot of biochemical reactions occurring within the body, But what governs our biochemistry within the body? This is what no one is asking, and that is the electromagnetism. So this is the invisible force, the electromagnetic force within our body that's actually governing the biochemical reactions, which is then determining what the biochemistry is going to do. So there are many things that influence our biochemistry, right? And also our electromagnetism. And you can imagine these days with all these stressors in our environment, like the non-native electromagnetic fields from cell towers, Wi-Fi, cell phones, laptops, all electronic devices, basically modern electronic devices emit non-native electromagnetic fields. And non-native means, well, it's not native to this earth. So that means it is foreign to your body. So when something is foreign to your body perceives that as a stressor. And your body is actually an antenna, which actually is extremely conductive. And this is how we can get the benefits from grounding with our bare feet on the ground, which we'll get into later on in the podcast. So if we are conductive and electromagnetic, that means anything that is producing RF radio frequencies, electromagnetic fields, electric fields, magnetic fields from cars and things like this, it's all being absorbed into our system, and this is causing cellular chaos and stress. Well, cellular chaos and stress causes mitochondrial damage and dysfunction. And when we have excessive mitochondrial damage and dysfunction, now we have decreased energy production within the system. And as I mentioned previously, when we have more energy, we can carry out all our biological processes, right? What is disease manifestation? Disease manifestation is when the body cannot produce a sufficient amount of energy to get rid of the problem fast enough before it presents itself as symptoms on the outside. So before you experience symptoms on the outside, there are a lot of things that are happening under the hood for a long time before those symptoms manifest externally and you actually notice them. For example, if you are experiencing pain, meaning non-contact pain that has come about from nowhere. You just woke up one morning and something hurts. Or you come up, one day you have a hard workout and then all of a sudden you're diagnosed with an autoimmune condition after the workout, after a big stress or a big traumatic emotional event. Well, clearly you have been under stress and your body has been under stress for a really long time leading up to that point. And then you had one really, even a small stressor that could have just thrown you over the edge. And that was the last drop before it resulted in something that you think that your body is doing something to you, but it's never doing something to you. It's always doing something for you. It's trying to bring to your awareness that there is something that you need to really pay attention right now. And if you keep on going like this is not going to end well. And so by the time it gets to the symptoms, it's already gone really far. But that doesn't mean it's too late. We can still, reverse a lot of the damage that has occurred as long as we fix our lifestyle habits and behaviors. And I think it would be really good if we addressed all of the things that cause mitochondrial dysfunction to begin with, because I think it's important for us to be aware what those things actually are, because a lot of us are not aware, right? And if you're not aware, then that means you're sabotaging your health even though you don't know it. So as I mentioned, one of the biggest things is the electromagnetic frequencies because they're invisible to the naked eye. So think about, for people to understand the electromagnetic frequencies, the sun is also part of the electromagnetic spectrum, the sun that you can see. The sun that you can't see is also part of the electromagnetic spectrum. So for example, UV light, infrared light, your naked eye cannot detect those, but some animals can detect UV and infrared light. So everything goes on a scale, and you have a little tiny part on the electromagnetic spectrum, which is the visible light that your eye can perceive. There is so much going on around us that our eye cannot perceive, which is incredible. And I think that is for a reason, because if we could see everything going on around us, we would go insane. And our nervous system would freak out, right? Imagine if you were seeing like ghosts and beings around you, or whatever you want to call it, like energy around you, or whatever you believe in, you would definitely be able to see something so much more than what you can see right now. And then a lot of people actually are able to tap into those abilities. It just seems that they have sort of this sixth sense that they're able to see more of the electromagnetic spectrum compared to individuals who are just only able to see the visible light spectrum. Anyway, I'm sorry, I went a bit on a rant there. So basically, the electromagnetic fields, the non-native ones, are a huge stressor to the system. And what this actually does, it actually contracts the body. And when our body is in a contracted state, this clearly and obviously restricts blood flow around the body, right? So think about keeping a muscle super tense for a really long period of time, except the difference is it's not super tense, it's micro tense, but it's still more tense than it would be when you're super relaxed. So when you are in this state, you're restricting the blood flow and therefore the oxygen delivery to the cells and also the nutrients, but you're also inhibiting good lymphatic system flow, which is vital for your detoxification pathways and removing metabolic waste from your body. Every time when we produce cellular energy from the mitochondria, we produce also metabolic waste. So if we cannot get that waste out, this waste accumulates around and inside of the cells. And now this is going to become an environment which is not very inhabitable for the cells, right? It's not very nice. And there is one really powerful saying that they say you cannot heal in the same environment that you got ill within. And this is like super true, because if you got sick by creating stagnation inside of the body, you cannot expect to get better without removing that stagnation. But this can also mean your external environment. So if the non-native electromagnetic fields from your environment are causing you problems, you can't continue to live close to electromagnetic fields, non-native ones, and expect to get better. You have to change something. And the inverse square law is the most important thing when it comes to electromagnetic fields. So the inverse square law is the closer you are to the source of the radiation, the bigger the exposure you get and the higher the intensity. Now, the issue with electromagnetic fields is more about the duration, so the time, and the intensity, so how close you are to the source. So the further away you are, the amount of radiation that your body receives drops off exponentially. So that's one of your biggest friends. So distance is your friend. So that's a great tip for the audience. So if you have your Wi-Fi router next to your bed, better to move it as far away into your living room, somewhere really far, if you don't want to shut it off when you're not using it, or especially at nighttime. But yeah, so basically the non-native electromagnetic fields, they also cause a calcium influx, which is basically causing, yes, this muscle contraction, as I mentioned. But another thing, the nefarious thing that they do is they change the oxidation state of iron. And this knowledge that I'm about to share right now is from Dr. Jack Kruse. So I've listened to this on one of his recent podcasts, and he explains that when the oxidation state of iron within hemoglobin changes, our body now cannot release oxygen from the red blood cell. So even if you're breathing, your body now cannot receive oxygen, so you start to become hypoxic. And so what does a hypoxic tissue do? Well, it runs on anaerobic metabolism, which is carbs, right? And so when your body is running on glucose, well, you only have so much glucose reserve within the system. What happens when that glucose runs out? Well, you start to run out of energy and your body needs to go into gluconeogenesis, which is also a very stressful state for the body to be in. So another reason why these non-native electromagnetic fields are really harmful. So this is just one of the stressors that are in people's environment that they are not aware of, which is causing massive harm on the mitochondria and disrupting your energy production and causing a lot of issues, even if people are not realizing it. Do you want to jump in before I continue?
Yeah, I've been wanting this to come front and center for a while, just to share a related story. Like you were saying, these fields are not, you can't perceive them consciously. You can't see them. You can't really feel them. Although some people I know now who know how to sense when something doesn't feel right, have come
that's
into
me.
spaces. yeah. And it's a cultivated sense, though, when you've had enough time away from those frequencies.
Yes.
You can go into a place and go, something's not right here. And an
Correct.
Interesting story is part of I was treating when my son was going through a lot, I was very biochemical. I was like, what supplement, what nutrition, very biochemical. And suddenly someone helped me shift, saying, this is not biochemical. This is such a strong pattern. There's something else. And I hired an EMF, electromagnetic field expert, come to my home that's way out in the mountains. And I had no idea. Is it Is it this? Is it the solar? Is it the, what is it? What is it? And I was lost until this person went through with 5 different types of meters. They went through the space. The $9 fan next to the head of his bed was radiating dirty electricity. I thought it was, we were already unplugging the router at night. We were already doing so many things and we're feeling kind of lost. So I just wanted to say this is, and that was a huge turn. His brain could finally drain and heal and all that. And the other thing is, I didn't know that some people are so sick they can't get sick. They're so sick, there's no way their body can bundle up and package and move out the detoxes. They can't go through the whole inflammation phase that your body needs. And like you were saying, that metabolic waste building up around and inside the cells. I mean, if you think about how our body is always rebuilding itself, if you think if this was a building and someone was doing construction, and as they were tearing down the drywall to replace it, if there was no place to take that trash, you couldn't even finish the job of building. It would almost immediately, you can't rebuild. So I love this metaphor. Okay, so that number one, electromagnetic fields, non-native frequencies, distance, time, and of course the other side of that is plug in to plug in your feet to the ground, your skin to the sun, your ears to the sound of the ocean. I resist this so much. I love writing. I love reading. I spend too much time indoors, and I just had to make myself. I'm like, okay, this is the time every day, no matter what, Deb, you're going to go stick your feet on the ground and lay in the sun. So, and you're glowing, your skin, you're glowing with your tan. I got to catch up.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much, Deb. I really appreciate it.
So what's a second part of this? You're giving this idea of these processes, these spirals, these health spirals that are going up or they're going down. So electromagnetic non-native frequencies, number one.
Yes, that's the number one. And the another one that your eye can actually see is the artificial blue light. So that's also part of the electromagnetic spectrum. Blue light also exists within sunlight, but it's not a problem when it comes in combination with the other colors of the spectrum and the other frequencies. So basically, in the blue light in combination with infrared light and UV light is actually a beautiful thing that our body is designed to be attuned to, like a tuning fork, but it's not used to an isolated blue light. And basically what this does, if you think about it, when is the blue in the sky the highest? That is in the middle of the day. That is solar noon, right? And so the body is designed to be the most alert at solar noon, which is the middle of the day where the sun is the highest in the sky and the UV light is the highest as well at the same time. So everything is coming in combination. So when the sun is the hottest, that is also when the sky is the bluest and the sun is the bluest. So if you are exposed to artificial blue light, which is everywhere, right? So it's screens, all electronic devices, even in your fridge, on modern cars, supermarkets, gyms, hospitals, unfortunately, everywhere we have this artificial blue light, which is super, super toxic for us. And the reason why it's such a problem for us is because it signals to our body that it's daytime all day. So if you're spending time indoors, especially without open windows to allow the full spectrum light to come in, you are telling your brain that it's solar noon all day from the morning until the evening. So the mitochondria are designed to get red and infrared light throughout the day. And what this actually does on a cellular level, it actually makes you produce cellular melatonin. And so the cellular melatonin allows repair to occur and regeneration in the daytime, even though it's not nighttime yet. So we tend to think of melatonin as the sleeping hormone, which is produced by the pineal gland. So we have two types of melatonin. We have the pineal melatonin, which gets produced when it gets dark. So in the absence of blue light, that's super important. And also in the daytime, in the presence of red and infrared light. And this is why red light therapy is so powerful, or one of the mechanisms by which red light therapy is so powerful, right? Because the sun is basically 50% red and infrared light, 50% of the sun. So that means you're getting a ton of red and a ton of infrared light the whole day. So your body is actually not meant to be without melatonin the entire day, if you think about it. It's meant to be producing it in the presence of light, and it's meant to be releasing it by the pineal gland in the absence of light. So the presence and the absence of light are both important, super, super important, because that is what is allowing us to have this melatonin in the system. And the melatonin is like the super antioxidant, right? It's known for regenerating and healing the body, and it's meant to just keep our body healthy. If there is something growing in the body that's not meant to be there, it helps to remove these things from the body. So if we are not having that melatonin release, well, you can imagine what happens, right? We have dis-ease manifestation because melatonin is sort of this reset button for the entire system. So if you're not getting any sunlight, so you're indoors all day, and then nighttime, you are creating daytime with light bulbs, which is the artificial blue light, most modern LED lights. Then you're basically creating an artificial sun 24/7, and you're preventing, well, it's a real disrespect to call it the sun, because the sun at least gives you the red and the infrared and the UV. So it doesn't give you any of the other spectrum, it gives you only a little slither of the visible light spectrum. And this is the one big thing, the melatonin. But another thing is the stress that it actually creates on the mitochondria. So the mitochondria make energy, right? So when the blue light, the artificial blue light hits the mitochondria, it inhibits energy production within the mitochondria. So that means your cells cannot produce the energy. So if your energy production is decreased, now that means you have less cellular energy. That's why a lot of people, they feel really, really drained when they spend a lot of time indoors, because at first, blue light alerts you because it raises cortisol, which is the stress hormone. But if you keep cortisol elevated chronically, which is another of the issues of blue light, it basically zaps your energy because it steals energy away from the production of other vital hormones that should be produced within the daytime or the nighttime. And you're giving it all to cortisol, which is basically your stress. And so if you're constantly in this sympathetic state, well, your body does not heal, regenerate, and thrive and detoxify in a sympathetic state. And what is a sympathetic state? A sympathetic state is when you're running away from a tiger. So if you're running away from a tiger 24/7, I don't think your body cares about healing and regenerating. All it cares about is to get away from the tiger first, survive, now I can shift back into a parasympathetic state. But the problem is that this tiger is invisible, or it is visible, but we're just not aware of it, right? And so what is super important to understand is the lighting that you are exposed to massively influences every single aspect of your health, from your mood, your energy levels, your hormones, your sex drive, your cognitive function, your sleep quality, your recovery, your ability to heal, regenerate, detoxify, and thrive, all comes down to the light environment. And this obviously ties into your circadian rhythms and what I mentioned previously about the melatonin, right, being inhibited by the blue light, especially if you're exposed to solar noon light at nighttime, you're confusing your brain of what time of day it is. So obviously the absence of light is just as important as the presence of sunlight. So getting enough sunlight during the day makes you produce serotonin in the gut. So the majority of the serotonin is produced in the gut. And when you produce this serotonin, afterwards in the nighttime, your body is now able to take that serotonin via the vagus nerve and take it all the way up to the pineal gland and convert it to melatonin, because melatonin is made from serotonin. And so this is why it's so important to get sunlight to sleep well, because you can't just block the blue light after sunset and expect that you're magically going to sleep. Of course, it's going to massively help you. Yes, I would rather you do that than not do it at all. But receiving the sunlight in the daytime, especially on your belly, is going to allow you to produce more serotonin, and it's going to allow you to sleep so much deeper. And this makes people realize, oh, when I spend a day at the beach, I feel so tired at night. But why is that? It's because your body now is so much more optimized. You've made mitochondrial melatonin the entire day, which is super relaxing for your body, right? Puts you into that parasympathetic state. And then in the absence of light, now all that serotonin can be converted to melatonin. But that's only in the absence of light or the absence of blue light. If the blue light is present, you do not make the melatonin. So therefore, you do not go into deep and restorative sleep. You cannot repair. You cannot regenerate. You cannot detoxify. So the type of light you're exposed to massively influences the quality of your life.
This this is huge. I there's so many things to unpack in there. I love how you're putting the science behind the processes, and this will give us even more practical choice in the matter of the design of our health. And one thing you said was in the serotonin, the sun on the belly. That's the one spot. I roll up my shirt. I'm like, I'm going to get I have the darkest belly tan and it feels so good. And the reason I was doing it was partially imagining just getting the healing of the UV and the infrared and all that to the gut. But now you're explaining how critical that is in the role of sleep and the serotonin signaling to the brain. The other things you're talking about, blue light, high noon, all day long, the stress state. And what I didn't understand early on, because I was so biochemical, was that you can only heal in a state of rest and digest. And the only repair that can happen is when you've offloaded the stressors. I recently read something, I can't remember the information, like even one of the little glowing blue light, or one of the glowing digital clock, having just that little bit of interference all night long. Now I'm in a weird industrial warehouse environment. So I've lost a lot of control over some of the exterior lighting coming in. So I do like a blindfold type of sleeping mask to try to.
Oh, that's great.
And the other thing I was doing for a while is for a couple of months, no matter what, at sunrise, I just would take a walk no matter what. And that was lovely, but I also live in a very foggy area. So it didn't become so enticing after a while. So okay. So you're living probably in a pretty warm climate, right?
Yes. I mean, at the moment it's summertime, but in the winter it does get also darker and cold here too.
And of course, that's part of nature, and we want to have that full experience.
Oh, you don't even know how important embracing seasonality actually is.
Okay, let's do that.
So basically, you mentioned about the sun not being so present, because it's foggy in the morning. Well, what if I told you that it's actually even more important to get outside on a day like that? Because when it's like that outside, your body needs the light even more, because indoors we're not receiving the same amount of light intensity. And one really great way for people to test light intensity is by downloading this one app. It's called My Circadian app. It's by Sarah Kleiner Wellness, if you know her. She has this one application which basically has a lux meter. Lux, L-U-X, stands for brightness. And so when you go outside and you basically put your phone towards the sky, you will be able to see with the front-facing camera that it tells you how bright it actually is compared to indoor environment. So it doesn't matter even if you're not getting the direct light and it's cloudy outside, you are still going to get a ton of red and infrared light because UV does not penetrate so well through clouds, unfortunately, or through chemtrails rather. And so basically, it's still worth getting outdoors, because in an indoor environment, you wouldn't get those benefits. You wouldn't get the light intensity, which is super important for setting your circadian rhythm. So another thing is about the circadian rhythm is that you need to have enough light intensity throughout the day. An indoor environment has a maximum of 10,000 lux, which is very, very dim. An outdoor environment has more than 100,000 lux in brightness in the middle of the day, which basically this amount of brightness to the eyes passively, doesn't mean like you need to look at the sun, but just being outdoors, just doing your daily life, is actually going to tell your brain that this is absolutely daytime right now. And when you go indoors and you have less light, you start to feel tired automatically. You even notice this straight away, that if you go for a walk outside and it's super bright in the middle of the day, and you come indoors to your house and let's say you have closed windows or it's kind of dark indoors, don't you start to feel a little bit like tired and disoriented? That's because the lux, the light intensity, changes so dramatically from an outdoor environment to an indoor environment. Now your brain thinks that it's nighttime. So it starts to release melatonin into your body. But the problem is that when you don't have the brightness in the daytime, the brightest thing that's in your environment is your light bulb. So basically your body thinks that the light bulb is the sun, and now your body is totally confused and you cannot fall asleep at night. So another reason why it's so important to be outdoors.
No wonder when I used to have a job that traveled, I learned that I would have horrible jet lag unless I just took a walk. Whatever city I landed in, I learned to walk around. That must have been also just the amount of lux coming in after that dark experience on the airplane and the stressors of the electromagnetic stressors. And a
Yes,
couple of the other things here is well, I guess that was one of the upsides of COVID was, at least in the United States, people started to eat more outside and meet their friends more outside. In Europe, I
that's
know
good.
there's a longer tradition of that. The United States, not so much. But so what if okay? And I actually used to work for Kindle, the Amazon stuff, and I would have a lux meter, and we could never come close. I could be blasting all kinds of lights, and no matter what, we couldn't come anywhere close to the amount of light generated outside. So I'm so glad you brought that app up, my circadian app. So and that reminds me, I have this illusion. I'm in a place with lots of windows that feel like natural light, but it's gonna nowhere come close to approximating the frequencies of being outside. So one question.
Correct.
So is our and you hinted that one practical step is replace, in California, they even banned the use of incandescent bulbs. They
Yes, I
banned
heard of
it.
that. Yes.
And so I couldn't get any. And that they're mandating that you have to have a certain lumen level or whatever that's
Yeah, yeah, for energy
eco-friendly,
saving.
energy saving. You're more like human
Yeah.
cooling. Okay, anyhow. So I'm just now finding ways to get the incandescent lights, and it's like a glowing little candle. It's got this sweet feeling to it. But is that, and the main win there would be reducing the attack of the LED and the fluorescent. But how
Yeah.
far do you go to? Because I've seen some people go pretty far in investing in red light machines or red light masks or red light other things. I mean,
Yeah.
the cheapest thing would be go outside more during the day and turn off as much as you can at night. But how far do you
Correct.
go in investing in red light therapy?
So red light therapy and red light bulbs is completely different. So basically, what you want to do really, if you want to optimize your lighting environment inside of your home to eliminate the blue light after sunset, especially, I advise people to have these stands next to their bed or just lamp stands that are lower down instead of overhead, which are replaced with red light bulbs. So red light bulbs which do not emit any of the blue. So their absence of all the other colors of the spectrum, and only the red is present because red does not influence melatonin production. So it doesn't stimulate cortisol. And this is why all the light bulbs in my home are actually red. I don't have any LED lights. And in the daytime, all my windows are open because when you have open windows, you allow full spectrum light to enter the room, which is also increasing the amount of lux as well, because with a closed window, especially modern windows, they have this reflective material which blocks a lot of the brightness, but as well they block the essential UV light and the red and the infrared. So basically, they only allow in the toxic blue. So even making the indoor environment even worse just by having the windows closed. So the biggest game changer that people can do, especially if they're working from home, if they can, is to sit by a window and have the window open and have the screen basically like just right there where the window is, so that the eyes are getting the passive light right there and you're able to still see the screen even if sun is not hitting you directly. And that's like a beautiful practice to help minimize the stress and the damage to the eyes that the artificial blue light actually does when we are using the gadgets chronically.
And you're wearing blue light blocking glasses.
These are the daytime ones. Yeah. So the yellow ones are for daytime use, which is very important if you're indoors and you're behind glass. My window right now is still open, but of course it's getting towards evening hours. So that's why I'm putting the glasses on, because now the lux from the screen is getting more than the lux outside. So I'm trying to protect my eyes. So so if somebody is working indoors who can't open the windows, you have to wear yellow blue light blocking glasses. This is absolutely a game changer for your eye strain, headaches, to be able to focus better. It creates more of a harmonious environment for your eyes and your brain, and it makes you think that it's more of a balanced light. Of course, it doesn't change the light that you're exposed to, but it still helps the brain to be more in a parasympathetic state. But at nighttime, after sunset, you want to wear your red blue light blocking glasses, because the red ones are the ones that are blocking 100% of the blue light. These only block like, I don't know, maybe like 50%, maybe 60% of the blue light, which you actually need during the daytime to stay awake. So blue light isn't, you don't, it's not inherently bad. You actually need some blue light to actually be able to function. But if you block all of it, then of course you start to feel sleepy, right? Because what I just mentioned previously, that the absence of light or the absence of blue light releases melatonin. So you want to be protecting your eyes, because the eyes are what give the signals to all the other clocks in your body. The primary clocks are found in your eyes, which tell all the other clocks of all your other biological systems what time of day it is.
Let's stay with this for a second, because one of my other guests creates these spectral filters called Erlen lenses, and they're very custom. You have to go and a couple of hours custom dial out of trillions of possibilities. But the research behind them is that when the right filter is applied, all the brain inflammation goes away like instantly. So that was a hint to me, like, oh, I didn't realize how important the rhythm and the communication between the eyes and the brain were for this overall sense of safety. And yet you're telling me there's something so much simpler to start with: the day and nighttime blue light blocking lenses. I need to, I'll have to figure, I'd love to know where to get those, because, and I'd love to get them in reading glasses form for when I'm using my computer. So
yeah, they have prescription too. Many brands do prescription also.
Well, I would love to get your well, you're in Europe, so maybe a different provider. I'm not sure.
No, they ship worldwide. The brand that I'm partnered with, the brand is called emrtech.com, and all the brands that I partner with, I use and trust myself. So I wouldn't put something out there or promote something that I wouldn't believe in myself. So I'm not this kind of person who just accepts like any kind of like collaboration. Oh, just because you're getting paid or getting sent something, I'm going to promote it. No, it doesn't work like that. I have to truly believe in it, and it has to be aligned with my values. Otherwise, I look like a scammer. I look like a joke. I don't want to create that kind of image about myself. And plus, I'm not that kind of person. I want people to be able to heal, regenerate, and thrive, and to feel as good as me. And this is why people trust my opinion, because I share what actually works.
And that's why I would love to, wherever your list of your links to all the products that you partner with, I would love to make that available, because you've done the research. The problem is when we're getting marketed to, I can't tell you how many things that I tried were could possibly have been scams or dishonestly marketed. And that's honestly why people in this regeneration space get so much criticism, is there have been scammers in the past. In fact, this is a funny story. Back in the US, when holistic medicine was everywhere, it was like the first medicine, chiropractic, homeopathy, Chinese medicine, that was the norm. And yet there was snake oil that came from China, the Chinese railroad workers. It was a powerful anti-inflammatory. And then an American marketer decided to just make something that looked like that and called it snake oil. An American scammer gave snake oil a bad name. And then everybody in the United States, if you talk about, oh, these herbs or this, the first biochemical responses, oh, that's snake oil. Well, yeah, because a scammy marketer stole a traditional recipe and bastardized it. I don't know how many of the supplements I've ordered. Who knows the integrity there? But the most important thing I've found is I need to be able to test, whether it's muscle test or I have some criteria to tell is something actually working. And having a vetted source like you is a great resource for my whole audience. So we'll include the link to whatever your affiliates or partner sites are. Okay, so how much of you? So you said you use red light bulbs. You replaced red light bulbs, not in overhead light. It's in low tables.
No, it needs to be lower down, and I'll tell you the reason why. Because at sunrise and sunset, the sky is red and orange, right? So and that actually signals to the brain that, hey, this is either sunrise or it's sunset, and there is in the absence of blue, or it's way less blue light. And so when you have the red lower down, it's more calming for the body. It's not overhead. But the only time that we have light overhead is in the middle of the day, right? When the sun is the highest. So if we have it overhead, that's also a stressor to the body. Even if it's red light, when it's overhead, you will notice you can buy some red lights or even buy regular lights. It doesn't matter. Just put it overhead and put one lower down, then turn the overhead one off. Don't you instantly feel calmer? Well, that's because the overhead one is bombarding you from the top, and it's like this constant stressor that your brain can perceive, even though your eyes are not looking at it directly, right? And it's constantly creating this alertness. And of course, you have photoreceptors in the skin as well. So even if your eyes are, let's say, blocking 100% of the blue light, if you're exposed with your skin to the blue light, that can also potentially keep you awake as well, or disrupt your melatonin production.
And I'm sure you don't wear sunglasses.
No.
Very confusing for the eye to say it's dark, and yet that's one of my main confusions about the technology here is, am I disrupting the organic? So I wear these inside and around my blue stuff, but not so much outside. I can't, and imagine the confusion that your eyes and brain, oh, it's darker out than it is. How would it possibly recruit the right number of resources to protect your skin?
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. This is so deep.
It goes so deep. It's not, one podcast is not sufficient to talk about like many things. Like if we were to talk about just circadian rhythms for one entire podcast, it would need to be one on its own. And that is just the circadian mechanism, right? Which is basically all the clocks of how the body is running. And that is the timing. When we say circadian rhythm, that is the timing of what each system of the body and when it should be doing those processes.
Because everything is a cycle. Everything has
it's a spiral. It's a spiral. Exactly. It's a repeating spiral. And basically, when your clocks are out of alignment, then it knocks all the other clocks out of alignment as well. So, for example, if people's gut clocks are out of alignment because they skip breakfast, because eating breakfast signals to your gut, because it doesn't have photoreceptors inside of your gut, right? It cannot perceive light as well compared to the eyes. The biggest signal to tell your gut that it's daytime or morning time, that it has to wake up, is food. So when food is coming in, it signals to your brain, hey, now it's sunrise time. That's why you should eat within 30 minutes of sunrise. And your last meal of the day should be before sunset. So the absence of food is telling to your gut, hey, now we're transitioning into evening time, which means repair, detox, regeneration, heal the gut, seal the gut, get rid of the problems, fix the bacteria. Well, when that's not taking place and you're eating right before bed, and especially after sunset, now digestion is taking place when it shouldn't be, all the way until the middle of the night, disrupting your hormone production, because hormones cannot really be produced in the presence of digestion, and a whole host of other processes. And that is just the gut level. And you mentioned previously about getting sunlight on the gut, right? So when your body gets the sunlight, no matter where it gets you on the body, but especially the gut, you're able to alter your gut microbiome without food. So the presence of UV light and infrared light is able to change the diversity and the microbiome in general towards a positive direction. They noticed this in tribes when they went to study certain tribes who basically, they ate ancestrally appropriate food, and they gave them candy bars and different things and sodas. Nothing happened to their microbiome. Their microbiome was totally uninterrupted. But if you take that same individual and you put them in a blue lit environment with the absence of sunlight, now their gut microbiome is starting to react negatively. And you need to ask yourself the question, why? It's because the sun has such a massive role over your gut microbiome. But not only that, every single biological process in your body is governed by light, which is obviously a source of native electromagnetic fields, which takes us into grounding and sunlight, right?
Okay. Wow. Like you said, you'll have to come back. You'll have to come back. But the number of practical things you've given us, tactical, practical, start today. Like there are things I'm going to shift immediately. And yet the whole reason I ever wanted to talk to you was methylene blue. So, and I love this, that everything are these clocks. And, actually this is funny. All movement, you're either counterclockwise or clockwise. or you're just in the middle doing neither. And everything being a spiral, it's because we are, that's how fluid moves in a gravity fed system. Spirals is how movement happens. It's how our heart is spiraling and structuring the blood. So the
Yes.
beautiful thing is you're bringing us back to this sort of beautiful simplicity here. We're getting back to these cycles, the rhythmic organic cycles, and not participating in things actively that disrupt them. So would you rather talk a bit about methylene blue, or would you rather talk about whether red light therapy is worth doing?
Well, what if I told you that they have a synergistic effect? I think it
Oh
would
my
be
God.
useful to I think it would be useful to talk about, yeah, let's talk about methylene blue because it's quite easy to cover it, right? So as I mentioned previously about the mitochondria that make the energy in the system, right? So when we have mitochondrial damage or dysfunction, we cannot make energy efficiently. Well, this is what happens when we are stressed in general or from all the things that I mentioned previously, blue light, non-native EMFs, processed food, like negative emotions, like traumatic events, anything stressful or super stressful on the body is going to cause mitochondrial dysfunction and damage to the mitochondria, which means your energy production is decreased. Now, where methylene blue comes in and why people actually use methylene blue is especially biohackers these days. In low doses, methylene blue is basically acting as a redox agent. And what this actually means is that it can find the electrons that are free floating in the body, which can be harmful, free radicals. And it's able to scavenge those. So it acts like an antioxidant, number one. And then number two, it's able to take those electrons, funnel them all the way to the mitochondria, bypass some of the key stages within the electron transport chain within the mitochondria. So I'll explain this part first. So inside the mitochondria, we have the electron transport chain, which is like a factory. You have 5 key steps within that chain of energy production. If any of those steps are broken or inhibited, you cannot transport the electron successfully along the electron transport chain to produce the end stage of energy production, which is ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is cellular energy. But another thing that you also produce in step 4 of the mitochondria is infrared light and also deuterium depleted water, which is structured water. So you're not also producing the structured water, but you're also not producing the cellular energy. And both of them are critically important. Most of the times when we have mitochondrial damage, it's either occurring on the 1, 2, and 3, not so much on the 4 and the 5. So basically, methylene blue is able to bypass 1, 2, and 3, take the electron all the way to number 4, and give it to the electron transport chain and produce the energy. And obviously, you need energy to repair and regenerate the mitochondria, right? And so everything requires energy, everything. Repair, regeneration, this is critical. Even the killing of cells like apoptosis needs energy. If you do not have energy, you're basically not able to kill cells that have gone rogue, which actually need to die. Your body knows when to kill them off, so then they don't turn into cancer cells. And so basically autophagy and apoptosis are both critically important in cellular health. And this is basically how methylene blue is actually working. It's actually helping the mitochondria to repair itself. It's acting as an antioxidant, so soaking up the reactive oxygen species and the oxidative stress inside of the body, which is causing a lot of the damage in the first place. And it's also changing the oxidation state of iron, which is allowing your body now to release the oxygen from the red blood cell and allowing you to get oxygen in the tissues, removing hypoxia. So you're able to do aerobic respiration, which is aerobic metabolism, which is fat utilization, which means abundant energy supply. Because on your body, even if you're very lean, you have a lot of fat on your body. That's a lot of calories. That signals abundant energy to the system. But if your system is constantly stuck in glucose metabolism, carbohydrate metabolism, in anaerobic state, in the absence of oxygen, basically, this is what you experience during a hard workout, during resistance training or sprinting, but you don't want to stay in that state all of the time. And so if you stay in that state all of the time, you're going to run out of energy. And obviously less energy means all kinds of problems, as we mentioned. So that's basically how methylene blue actually works.
I can't tell you how depleted I was after not realizing I was slowly succumbing to this toxic mold. It was, the ceiling was hanging down. There was black dripping out of it. And I just I just didn't, it just felt like the blood, literally like the oxygen, the blood had been drained out of my body. And I couldn't figure out why. I just couldn't figure out what the solution was at the time because my energy was so depleted. And the burst of energy I got when I started low dose methylene blue, and guys, there's a whole, how do you figure out how much? And I don't know. I don't even know.
The
know
sourcing is critically important, by the way. That's super important to mention, because the quality of the methylene blue that you use, it has to not contain any heavy metals. This is super important because there are many on the market which contain heavy metals. So it has to be USP grade, which is United States pharmaceutical grade methylene blue, number one. And it has to be third-party lab tested to make sure it doesn't have any heavy metals in, because a lot of the methylene blue on the market is industrial dye.
Because
at the beginning, yes, because at the beginning it was used as an industrial dye to dye jeans. And then in 1876, one German chemist, he discovered that it has an incredible affinity for the mitochondria, and it was great for staining cells in a petri dish. But by doing this, he also figured out, when they were studying malaria and staining the malarial cells, that it basically acted as an anti-malarial. It basically killed the malaria. So basically that was the first anti-malarial drug, methylene blue.
Which was one of the first drugs ever, right? Well, it became hydroxychloroquine. It's the original source that became the anti-malarial hydroxychloroquine, which is one of the oldest drugs that exists. So,
yes, exactly.
Okay. So risks here. One is you get a low grade, it's industrial. So they just let all the contaminants remain in it because it doesn't matter so much in cloth.
That's causing you more harm than good.
And so your partner list will have your recommended sources. And if we're looking on our own, we'll be looking for the US pharmaceutical grade and the third party lab tested.
They should be transparent and have it on their website. Normally you should be able to see the third party lab testing on the website. If they're proud of it, you will be able to see that they've tested for the heavy metals. The brand that I use, they have it on their website actually there. And if they don't have it there, you can ask them, they will send it to your email.
I love it. And then as far as sorting out dosing, I was lucky I had a practitioner working with me who could titrate, and we could help me figure out. I heard that a common mistake is people just start to do it every single day, and they don't take a kind of a rest
too much as well.
From it. Too much, and honestly, in this whole realm of biohacking and citizen science, the biggest mistake I ever made was too fast, too hard, too fast, and versus titrating up 1 drop, 2 drops, and that could take weeks. There's being these adaptive processes. Even something healthy shouldn't be abrupt and harsh unless you're in an emergency situation. So anything else,
and it is used for emergencies too.
In the hospitals, isn't it used to restore oxygen transport?
Yes, exactly. What I just said, it helps your hemoglobin to successfully carry the oxygen and release the oxygen. So there is these specific conditions as well, like I don't remember the name of it. I think it's called methylglobinemia or something like that. I think that's the name. And that is a condition in which you cannot actually carry oxygen on the red blood cell, and methylene blue actually helps with that. And then another situation where we see that the body cannot carry oxygen or cannot make energy successfully is in cyanide poisoning or carbon monoxide poisoning. So in any of those two situations, if you're being gassed in your house or something like this, methylene blue could be your savior if they use it in an emergency.
Yeah, so the naysayers talking about how it's just quackery would have to look back at it being one of the oldest, most, very well-respected tool for intervening. Do you personally use it regularly? And with your clients, when do you bring up go look at this?
So as I mentioned, since it's so powerful as an antioxidant and incredible against stress, the most important times that I would utilize it would be during a flight, for example, on an airplane, because you're in the air, ungrounded, flooded by electromagnetic fields, non-native ones, which are stressing your system, blasted by artificial blue light everywhere. This is one of the biggest stressors that your body could ever be exposed to. unless you were inside a microwave or something like that. It's basically equivalent to something like that. So basically methylene blue is helping to reduce a lot of the oxidative damage and stress that your body is encountering. And it's able to keep the oxygen going where it needs to go, right? Because as I mentioned previously, non-native electromagnetic fields change the oxidation state of iron, and the methylene blue does the opposite. So it sort of flips the switch back once it's gone the other way. But do you know what also flips the switch? Sunlight as well. So basically, if you are not exposed to natural light, then if you're exposed to blue light, it changes the oxidation state of iron. If you're exposed to sunlight, it changes it back again, so your body can utilize the oxygen that your hemoglobin is carrying. And so basically the hemoglobin, which is part of the red blood cell, right? So basically your red blood cells can do what they're supposed to do. So in situations that are super stressful, that's where I would use it as a super antioxidant to help me combat the oxidative stress. Maybe during a podcast, for example, because again, we have the electromagnetic fields, the blue lights, or anything stressful in general. And because it does increase energy production in the body, it can be seen sort of as a nootropic, because your brain has so much mitochondria, right? And as I said to you, that the methylene blue is attracted to mitochondria, which means that your body is now able to make more energy. More energy means better processing power, better thinking, better cognition. So there where you have the highest mitochondria are your heart, your brain, and your reproductive organs. And that is not by coincidence, because you need those functions to be able to survive and to reproduce, right?
And being able to reproduce requires the most energy of everything. And now in retrospect, no wonder so many of my coworkers, when I worked at a tech job, lots of driving, lots of sitting at a computer, no wonder so few of them could naturally have children, is the stressors were just adding up. And you need abundant energy. My son only happened after I'd spent 10 days in nature, getting fed beautiful organic meals 3 times a day. I came back, and after not getting pregnant for years, boom, there he came on my almost my 39th birthday. Wow. So abundance, to create the abundance of all forms, the feeling of abundance, there are all these tools that you've given us. And since we are using this blue light right now, and you're way over there in Cypress, it must be getting like 7 o'clock. Is it what
7,
time
yeah.
is it? 7. So we're going to respect your circadian rhythm, sir. We're going to draw this to a close. So let's make sure everyone knows, first of all, your website, or how do they get to this, these resources you've mentioned. There's the My Circadian app. There's the methylene blue that you use, your partners. There's your podcast, Fitness Wisdom Podcast. Like, how do people get more of you?
Okay, well, as you mentioned, the podcast is Fitness Wisdom Podcast everywhere on Spotify and YouTube. So just search Fitness Wisdom Podcast and you'll find my podcast. My website is mobility-fitness.com. On there, you will be able to find a lot of my work, how you're able to work with me. I offer circadian coaching as well. So if people want to align their circadian rhythm or fix their circadian rhythm, I'm able to help them with that. So I call it Circadian Reset. And of course, body transformation coaching as well. So people who are interested in muscle building, fat loss, or anything that involves basically transforming your body from the inside out, we've got you covered with that. And also the nutrition aspect as well, personalized nutrition plans, lifestyle optimization advice. It's all included within the package. So when you work with me, it's very hard to talk about only nutrition if you've booked nutrition, because it's all interrelated. I can't tell you about the light environment without telling you, when telling you about the food, because your light influences your food choices. So it's all intertwined, right? So basically you'll be able to find all of my resources on there. And as well, you'll be able to find the links to all of the affiliate partners that I mentioned within the show on my Instagram. And my Instagram is Andreas_David_Christou. I'm sure that Deb is going to link my stuff below. And you will be able to find the link in the bio, which is my bio link, basically. I don't remember the correct how it's written right now.
This morning. It's easy to find from your Instagram account. And I'll put all these links as prominently as I can in the notes. And I'm just want to say, you're an expert, and I looked, your program looks amazing. The prices look very reasonable. There are people charging insane $12,000. Like, they're just insane and unsustainable things. And honestly, because if you don't look at the whole package, you're not going to get the results. So take a look at his work, guys. I'm just very lucky to have found you. Instagram is my happy place. You're one of those people that makes me happy over there. And
Thank you so much,
yeah,
Deb.
wow, what a pleasure. Is there any last thing you want to share with my audience?
Yeah, I guess if we leave the audience with like one of the biggest tips and recommendations, one biggest takeaway that they can grab from this podcast, it would be just make sure that you spend more time in nature, because nature's laws and rules should not be broken. If you break nature's rules and laws, that is when you start to pay the price, right? And this is the reality. This is an actual fact. If you think about it, when we are indoors in an indoor environment, we are away from the Earth's magnetic field. So we are ungrounded from the Earth. So we're not receiving free electrons, free energy from the feet anymore. We are relying only on food as our form of electrons. So we are not harvesting electrons from the sun, and we're not harvesting electrons from the grounds. We only get one source of the energy, so 1/3 of the energy, which is from food. Now you rely on more food, which means that you start to get overweight, right? Because you rely on more food to get electrons, because your body is hungry, because you're not harvesting them from other sources. And so that's another thing. So our disconnection from nature is causing us to be obese, diabetic, like causes all kinds of issues and problems, is not allowing us to regenerate, to heal and thrive. And if you break nature's laws, then you're going to pay the consequences. So you need to live in alignment with nature in order to be able to thrive and to heal and regenerate. Of course, the bigger your issues are that you're experiencing, the more time you need to be aligned with nature. And nature needs to become your original friend, not your indoor environment. And your indoor environment needs to be mainly for sleeping and maybe working sometimes if necessary. But to be honest, how I personally work is I try to sit outside in the sun and do my work in direct light, even though it's harder on the eyes to look at screen. Because my eyes are flooded with so much light intensity, I get so much less stressed, and I feel less the impact of using technology outdoors versus in an indoor environment. So the biggest takeaway is connect with nature. Make sure you block the artificial blue light, especially after sunset. The blue light after sunset is the most damaging to the system. It really is. Turn your Wi-Fi off at night if you don't need it, and just try and connect with nature more, and just notice how much your life improves.
Yay! All right. Well, given that, we're going to turn off this blue light, and I'm going to make sure to go walk in that foggy morning light.
Awesome.
All right. What
Amazing,
a pleasure.
Deb.
Thank you. What a pleasure. I can't wait to talk to you again. All right.
Oh, absolutely. It was super fun. Thank you for having me on, and I'll be happy to do it again in the future.
I can't wait. Okay. Bye.
Bye, Deb.